Yeah, welcome to this week's episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast, brought to you by Yoshimura. 63 years of research and development. They've got everything you need for your four-stroke exhaust, be it an ATV, a motorcycle, or a dirt bike. Check it out at yoshimura-rd.com. We've been mentioning the really cool titanium header pipe that will take that Works Edition Honda CRF 450R and make it even better. So check that thing out at your local Yoshimura dealer, or again, yoshimura-rd.com. Now, I'm going to check one off the bucket list here for the podcast this week. This is not entirely a dirt bike-based subject, but I think it's a fascinating one, and it's my podcast, so you can cry if you want to. Our subject is Danny Thompson. Danny is the son of the very famous motorsports entrepreneur and racer, promoter, pretty much everything, Mickey Thompson. Nowadays, unfortunately, you might only know Mickey Thompson as a brand of tires, but there is a reason that his name is such a lofty brand, because Mickey was an innovator of the highest level in all forms of motorsports, be it on, road, or off. In this particular parlance, Mickey is really known as the man that invented short course off-road racing, basically taking desert racing with trucks and buggies and putting it into a smaller area, generally car racing tracks, and then eventually moving them into stadiums. And that's what makes this story so intriguing. Stadium off-road racing was on a parallel track with Supercross for a long time. They started around the same time, and they experienced big-time growth in the 80s at the same time. And that's where my interest picked up in 1988. The Mickey Thompson Off-Road Championship Grand Prix picked up a big-time television package on ESPN. You could watch the races every week, and it was awesome, and I was hooked, and I was every bit as into this as I was with watching Supercross. Now, at the same time, Mickey was moving into promoting all the stadium off-road events at Anaheim, and that meant also the Anaheim Supercross, as well as the Off-Road Truck Series. And that's where this story turns tragic, because in 1988, just as Mickey had wrestled complete control of the Supercross events at Anaheim Stadium, and just as his Off-Road Stadium Series got that ESPN deal and was really exploding, he and his wife Trudy were gunned down. They were murdered in their driveway in early 1988. Ultimately, those murders were actually traced back to Mike Goodwin, who is known as the founder of Supercross. He and Mickey were at one point business partners. That business arrangement went sour, and Goodwin is now in prison. We're not going to get into that in this week's podcast. That is certainly an interesting story, but it was covered by real reporters who do a real great job reporting on such things. You owe it to yourself. Type in LA Weekly, Mickey Thompson, in a Google search. In 2006, LAweekly.com put out a fantastic story called Murder on the Last Turn, explaining the manifestations between Thompson and Goodwin and how it became, for the Thompson family, a lifelong search to get Goodwin behind bars, which is where he is now. As for the Stadium Off-Road Series, without Mickey at the helm any longer, it rose and then fell. By 1988, 1989, it sure seemed like this was the next big thing. Like I said, it was on a parallel track, I feel, with Supercross. We know now that Supercross is still alive and well. Unfortunately, this off-road series didn't last through the 1995 season. It was a meteoric rise and a fast fall, but that's what happens when the founder and a very visionary promoter is gone. As for Danny Thompson, Mickey's son, he was one of the premier drivers in the premier class of that Stadium Off-Road Series, the Grand National Sport Trucks. I watched all these races. The action was spectacular. These were great races. And Danny himself became quite a name as a driver as well. But eventually, when that series went away, Danny retired as a driver and didn't really resurface in the news big time until just recently, this year. It was a lifelong journey for Danny and his dad to claim the Bonneville Salt Flat speed record for piston-powered vehicles. Now, Mickey famously got over the 400-mile mark back in the 1960s, but to have an official land speed record at the Bonneville Salt Flats, you need to produce a run twice. You need to do it 2 times for it to be official. First time, Mickey got over 400 miles an hour. Second time, he did not. The goal was to come back in 1968 and absolutely stamp it, go over 400 miles an hour 2 times. But it didn't happen, I believe, due to weather. And then the machine that Mickey built for that 1968 run basically went into storage. And then at one point, he and Danny planned on an assault to rebuild the machines, go back to Bonneville and get the record. But then, as we know, Mickey was tragically murdered. But 2018 would mark the 50th anniversary of building this machine, the Challenger 2. And Danny decided to set his sights on taking that machine out, rebuilding it, taking it to Bonneville, and driving it himself, and breaking the record that his dad, he feels, probably should have had all along. They actually did well. They went fast a couple of years ago. They were able to break their own record this year. They hit 435 miles an hour, both runs. And Danny Thompson now has the record of the fastest piston-powered vehicle at the Bonneville Salt Flats. And he did it in a machine that was engineered and built by his dad in 1968. So taking 50-year-old technology with some updates and breaking records. So it all together makes for a very fascinating story. So I got Danny Thompson on the phone. We talk about the run. We talk about his dad. We talk about the Stadium Off-Road Series and some of the links to Supercross. Like I said, if you want to know more about the Mickey Thompson and Trudy Thompson murders, you owe it to yourself to check out LA Weekly's story on that from 2006. It is just absolutely wild. Maybe someday I'll get Davey on the phone and we could talk to some of the people that were around Supercross in those days for a little more on that. But this is all positive. This is a great redemption story for Danny to take his dad's car out and get this record. And we also talk about the awesome days of Stadium Off-Road, which I absolutely loved. And there is zero talk about this series anywhere else anymore because the series has been gone for more than 20 years. So I got to check this one off the box and finally get to talk Stadium Off-Road racing with someone, which I've been waiting to do my entire life. But before we talk, yeah. Okay, just a few other things to mention before we start the Danny Thompson interview. The Racer X main event is coming up this weekend in Maine, of course. People can start moving into MX207 on Thursday. We'll practice Friday, motos on Saturday and Sunday. I will be there myself, providing we don't have a hurricane here in North Carolina and the airport doesn't get washed away. It'll be really fun. We had a great time there last year, so be there. Go to mx207.com if you're at all within motocross driving distance of Maine, which in motocross terms means pretty much anywhere in the country. You ought to go out and check it out or go ride yourself. The track is sweet. The purse is big. And we'll be there covering it. So what's not to love? Also, Racer X brand, we have our exhaust bonus package, 20% off. Just type in exhaust in all caps. Order up some shirts. Get some patriotic stuff that you can wear at Motocross of Nations, which is coming up at Redbud. It's racerxbrand.com to check that out. Also follow at RacerXbrand wherever you get your social media. Now, some old-fashioned media, a phone call with Danny Thompson. Here we go. Okay, we are here with Danny Thompson, a now world record holder, but I'm so confused by this. I have huge respect, and many people do, for your dad as an engineer and a fabricator, but how are you able to take a 1960s basis of technology and turn it into something better than anything else the world has ever seen? Is that really what it was? Are we looking at 1960s conquering 2018?
Yeah, basically we are. I mean, of course, there was a lot of updates and modifications, and made the car be better in every way that we could. But basically, it's a car that my dad and a group of really, really good hot rodder and dragster people from the 1960s, in 1968, built with the help of Carcraft, which was Ford's Skunk Works back in the day.
Uh-huh.
And so they drew it up and did a lot of the engineering, with my dad collaborating with all that. And, so to answer your question, those guys put together a really good package 50 years ago, and we took it and just modified it and, hopefully made it be better. And the thing went out, and, I mean, it hauled.
Apparently, that's what 450 miles an hour. That's definitely hauling. And the timing was not a coincidence, right? You were planning to do this because you mentioned 1968. That's a very critical year. So how long were you planning on, 2018 would be a perfect time to try to do this?
Well, I've been working on that car for 7 days a week for 8 years.
Wow.
So we actually broke the record in 2016, and this is kind of ironic. So my dad goes 406.6 miles an hour in 1960, and like 58 years later, we go out and we kick his ass by going out and going 406.7 miles. So, 1/10 of 1 mile an hour in 58 years.
So are you basically breaking your own record this year?
We did. We broke our own record, and we bumped it by 42 miles an hour. In Bonneville, typically, when you bump a record, it's 2 or 3 miles an hour. You struggle for that, but everything kind of lined up this year. This is the first year we had 2 pretty good runs, not perfect runs, but 2 pretty good runs. So, and the salt was good. The salt is it's kind of like Supercross or outdoor or anything else. The difference in a lap time between a muddy track and a good tacky track, where all the traction's right, and you get hooked up when you come off the corners. And this is a long straightaway, but trying to drive on the Bonneville Salt Flats, I kind of equate that to running uphill in the snow in the wintertime.
So as much science as you can put into the vehicle itself, there's still that Mother Nature element then. There's only so much that's under your control, no matter how much engineering and time you put into it then?
Mother Nature, if she wants you to go, you go. If she doesn't want you to go, you stay home. 2 years in a row we got rained out and didn't even get to go. So, look at a tabletop and take a little bit of water and pour it on top of a tabletop, and how much that little bit, those few drops really spread out. That's what happens at Bonneville. When it rains, it only takes a little bit of rain and it'll cover that whole salt, and suddenly it becomes a lake again, which it is most of the time during the winter.
And what is it like to actually drive this? I would think that some people, obviously this is an act of bravery for sure, but some people could also think, well, I guess you just go as fast as the car can go. How much driving are you actually doing? Is this thing trying to slide and buck around and bounce around when you're going across the salt?
Oh, it's horrendous. It is. You drive the wheels off that thing.
Okay.
There's some in-car video both on our Facebook page and our website.
Okay.
It's all Thompson LSR.
Okay.
ThompsonLSR.com, or Facebook is Thompson LSR, and it shows the car. My son had an in-car camera or in-car video inside, and it shows that car going just over the 4 mile mark. So we raced for 5 miles. We start at 0. And we go 0 to 5, and they time you between the 1 and the 2, the 2 and the 3, the 3 and the 4, and 4 and 5. And with us, the fastest time is between the 4 and 5. But at the 4 1/4, that thing is completely locked sideways, one direction. Then it's locked sideways. So it goes lock to lock 3 times at 430 miles an hour. So, yeah, you'd say you're driving the wheels off the thing, So, and I could have lifted. I should have lifted, but we had enough money for 2 runs this year. And that was basically about it. If I would have lifted, that would have thrown that run away. At Bonneville, to get a record, you have to do it twice, and they add the 2 runs together and then divide it by 2, and that's your record time. And so I would have had to throw that run away. Then we would have had to make 2 more runs, and we didn't have it. So I legged it through it, and fortunately, at the end of the deal, the car was okay, and I was okay, and we came away with a record. So it's not necessarily a world record, but it's the world fastest piston car with a 2-way average. So, it's a national record. There's a little controversy on how all that works. But anyway, we're the baddest piston-powered car there is right now.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good honor. Piston-powered, fastest, that's pretty impressive. And that 2-way run, that's always what in history kind of robbed your dad of having that 400-mile-an-hour record, right? He went 400 one way, and then it didn't work the other direction, right? He did hit the 400-mile mark, but that's ultimately what cost him having the official record, right?
Yeah, that's it exactly. And that's what happened last year. We ran 435 one way, and then we spit 6 rods out of the thing on the return run. So we didn't get that second run. So so it's to get a record at Bonneville, it's a 2-way average. So and that second run's not like twice as hard; it's like 50 times harder.
Because you've already done it, or is there something about going that direction that makes it harder?
No, at the Bonneville Nationals, you run the same direction. You run the next day. Oh, okay. The next morning. So no, it's just doing it, making that happen twice is really hard. There's only right now in the Bonneville 400-mile-an-hour club, that's people that have records over 400 miles an hour. There's only 13 people in that thing in the history of the deal. So
wow,
that kind of tells how hard it is to do. So yeah, pretty. I tell you what, it's the coolest thing I've ever done. I mean, riding motocross when I was young and all that stuff was really cool, and running stadium trucks was really cool. But this was this was the top of the game right there.
With this car that is based on what your dad came up with in 1968, are there other people challenging for these speeds in the piston division that have stuff that was engineered 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Are you going against much more modern equipment, or does that not happen in Bonneville? Does that not work that way?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. That's what's happening, and especially see all the cars now have traction control.
Oh,
traction control. They can traction control is way faster than you can be.
Sure.
We have Danny control, and that's what we got. So.
Okay.
And traction control is way faster than Danny control, but it's like. You look at the throttle position, and you look at the dry shaft speed, and you look at all those things, and you watch how you're on and off the throttle and stuff. Traction control, basically, those guys put their foot down on the throttle on the start line to flat, and go to the other end, and the computer does everything in between. So we don't have that stuff. And to answer your question, this year there was more cars. This year, 5 cars went over 400 miles an hour. That's the most ever. At one time. So right now there's potentially 8 cars that are record breakers over the 400-mile-an-hour deal. So, it's the most competitive that's ever been in the history of Bonneville racing for 400-plus-mile-an-hour runs.
Wow, yeah. So that means the technology then is really stepping up, and you're somehow competing without a lot of that technology.
Yeah, I mean, we have the engine technology and stuff, but like traction control and that stuff, we don't have. So it's it's pretty proud to take a car that's that old. And my dad never did get that official record. As you mentioned, he only went one way. So to bring that home for the family, man, that's so bitchin'. That is so bitchin'.
Well, I'm looking at this.
And for me.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you're now the name that's in the books. And I look at this picture of your crew, and I see it on your website. I mean, this is not something that you can do on your own. This is a pretty big crew. Is this something? I would assume this is not a money-making project. I'm assuming there's a lot of money sunk into this, looking at this crew and what you had to do.
I tell you what, at the end of the day, you get a little trophy and you get a black hat that says you're in the 400-mile-an-hour club, and that's it. But you get the satisfaction of you went out and did something that not too many people in the world can do. So, no, there's no money. There's no prize money at all. Bonneville Racing's kind of the last of the true amateur sports. There isn't the big factory money in there. There's not the Kawasaki's and the Hondas and the Suzuki's and the KTM's and all that kind of stuff. How we watch Supercross and outdoor change over the years from people's pickup trucks to then box vans to then semis. The Bonneville deal, you don't hardly see any of that up there at all. So there's some people with money naturally, as there is in every sport, but there is no money, and you saw all those crew members in that picture that you mentioned. Everybody on the whole team is volunteer.
Wow.
There's nobody paid there. These are people that are given their 1 week's vacation up to come work their asses off in 100-degree weather and hot sun for the cause because they want to see it happen.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Does the fact that it ties into your dad's legacy and having the one run and the other one that didn't count, does that motivate people a little bit? Does it make it a little bit easier maybe to get people to volunteer? This is a really special project. It's not just any world record attempt, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I think that certainly is a factor.
Yeah.
Kind of everything is a factor. These guys want to see. There was 3 of us full time for 3 years on this thing. I was full time for 8 years.
Wow.
That three guys got paid. Maybe it was 4 years even. 2 guys got paid because I never paid myself. Those guys got paid, and they're on the team. And it was a group of people that were all kind of looking when I first started this thing from the outside, looking at this thing. And I mean, like I said, and now there's only 13 people that have ever gone over 400, and gotten a record. And so people were saying when I started this thing, you're crazy. You can't take a car that's this old and go out and make this happen. So everybody was kind of in this circle, kind of watching from the outside. And as things started to come together a little bit at a time, that circle got tighter and tighter and tighter. And that circle that started watching originally is what ended up finishing up there. And, we got engine guys. I mean, we go through the bottom. We go through bearings, rod bearings and main bearings every run. The oil pan comes off, just like a drag car.
Wow.
Oil pan comes off, and go through the bottom end and check it, because these things are grenades.
Yep.
And we got a lot of nitromethane in them, and oh gosh, do they like nitromethane? Oh my God, that stuff's addicting. And we went on Saturday. We ran when we ran 446. We ran 84% nitromethane. We bumped the nitromethane by 3% the next day and made another 500. Well, this is a guess, but pretty close to another 500 horsepower.
Yeah, it's not like you were putting it on a dyno while you're out there.
No,
you're just going for it.
We call it the Great White Dyno.
Yeah, that's right. Salt flats. That's good. So what are we saying? Is it? I'm reading this here. Is it like 2,500 horsepower times 2? Is that what we got?
Yeah, and that was our original estimate. And that's when the engine was like down on like 50% nitro, and now we're up to 87% nitro. So we don't know exactly, but they're probably making 3,000 horsepower each anyway.
Oh, so over 6,000 horsepower.
Yeah, that might be conservative, but once again, those aren't like we don't know that for sure unless we put it on a dyno. But putting it on a dyno, that's more money again. So it's just a bunch of hardworking guys and girls, and a bunch of dedicated people, and a lot of big smiles the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, congratulations on that. Let's talk a little bit about your previous driving career in the Stadium Off-Road Series. And this is a strange thing. You're Danny Thompson. Your father, Mickey Thompson, it was his series. It was literally called the Mickey Thompson Off-Road Grand Prix. Is it safe to say he's kind of the inventor of having short course off-road racing, moving basically the little chunk of Baja, as they called it, into short course and then eventually into stadiums? That's really his invention, essentially, right?
Yeah, absolutely, his invention. If you got a second, I'll tell you a quick story how that all started. So, racing Baja, I think it was the 500.
Yep.
And Parnelli Jones, who is another bad man. I mean, that guy, he's bad fast, bad fast in anything he drives. So anyway, my dad and him had a little bit of a rivalry. So he starts a few minutes behind us, and we're roaring down there, and we're coming down into this canyon. And I kept looking for Parnelli because his car was faster. He had a purpose-built car, and we had a pickup truck. Both real close. Anyway, Parnelli finally catches us, and this is a hell of a race. And basically, I've got my seatbelts undone, and I'm looking behind to see where Parnelli is, and I'm giving my dad minute or second to second commentation on what's happening. Here he comes, he's coming up on the right, he's going to pass you on the right, no, he's on the left, he's going to go on the left, and going down this canyon, boulders and everything, and then I said, no, he's upside down, he's sliding on his side, and so, this is all happening, Parnelli hits something and bounces back up on four wheels and smokes by us, right, and I'm going, oh my God, that was fantastic, and my dad turns to junk driving, right, he's missing corners, and we're going slower. I go, what's wrong? Let's go. And he goes, people have to see this. This is incredible. People have to see this. Besides jackrabbits and rattlesnakes, people have to see this. That was the start. Because of that pass by Parnelli, that was the start. First, we went to Riverside, and we did, longer stuff. And then after that, then we came into short course, into the stadiums, Anaheim and that kind of stuff. So, but that was the start of it because of that race with Parnelli. So, MT, my dad, he just wanted people to see that. That's when we moved indoor.
And it grew really quickly. I mean, by the mid-1980s, I think you could easily argue that in the mid-1980s, and you were racing in a lot of the same stadiums that Supercross was racing in, it was probably as big or bigger than Supercross at the time with the crowds you were getting, and then the TV coverage was really coming around. It really took off in a quick amount of time, it seems.
It did, and I mean, and that was because of TV and because of good promoting. I mean, my dad had a knack for being a promoter. he could get that out there. He could get people, he could get people excited about things, and got the TV and got, some good color people on the TV, where they really, broadcasted the race as well, and expressed the excitement, because there's nothing as exciting as watch them, in up close and personal. But the TV did a good job of getting the word out there.
Yeah, I was just a little guy. I'm from New Jersey, so I knew, okay, I'm never going to see one of these races in person. But I was glued to the set every time it was on ESPN. And during that heyday, it would appear, at least, especially in that truck division, that there was a lot of money being spent by these manufacturers. It seemed like a really big operation with Toyota, yourself and Chevy and Ford and Jeep. It was a big deal, at least appeared to the outside.
No, you're absolutely right, Jason. I mean, sell, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. It was that deal, and pickup trucks were really coming out. They weren't as big as a seller as they are right now, but when you looked at the demographic of car sales and stuff, I mean, pickup trucks at the time were like 35% or something of car sales, and the factories, and Toyota picked it up first, and they really jumped on it, the biggest with Cal Wells and Ivan Stewart and those guys, and they really got it, and they really advertised it and used it. So the budget, Toyota's budget was huge.
They were winning a lot. They won the manufacturer's title every year except one. I remember that. But was that a lot of it what it came down to? Like, there was huge respect for Cal Wells, the team owner, and Ivan Stewart and the Millen brothers, the drivers. But it seemed like was a lot of it just Toyota was spending a lot of money on that. Was that a big part of the success?
Yeah, you know how that works with anything. But it takes, the money's a big deal for sure, and Toyota was outspending everybody probably 3-1 or 4-1. But those guys it's like right now that's competition to me right now. I'm seeing red. I want to beat that Toyota in the first corner, and if I have to turn him upside down, that's what's going to happen. So, but all in all, I mean, that Toyota team, and like you said with Ivan and both the Millen brothers, both Rod and Steve, all good. He hired the best drivers, and they had really good equipment. And but yeah, they have. So many drivers are so good. You put them in a different truck. What would that mean? But those guys wanted to win. They wanted to sell trucks, is the bottom line, and that's how they justified doing it, and they did it.
How did you end up being involved? I mean, did you come through the ranks as a driver? I only knew you when you were in that truck series there. So explain your background and how you got to be one of the players in that series yourself as a driver, completely disconnected from the fact that your dad ran the races. You were just a good driver in your own right.
Yeah, I came through desert racing. I raced motocross when I was young, and just loved that. Mammoth Mountain Moto, outdoor stuff. That was before indoor stuff was around.
Yeah.
And just loved motocross. And I lived in Mammoth, and when I was young. And so Mammoth Mountain Motocross, I mean, infamous, motocross race. Well, I lived a mile from there.
Wow.
So in the summertime, I rode that track every single day. When I got off work, I had a 250 Husky. I rode and I ran a backhoe for a living, and I rode my bike to wherever I was working, and then it was all off-road stuff. You could ride, in dirt. And then from there, I'd go ride. And I'd run laps until my tongue was hanging out, and I couldn't even go up and down that hill anymore. And it was like that's what I lived for every day, And I raced, almost in the summertime, almost every weekend or every other weekend, Carson City or whatever. So, but anyway, back to the truck deal. So I raced with my dad, but my dad would never let me drive. Right. So I was not allowed to drive. So I could ride with him and co-drive with him in Baja and, the Mint 400 and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't allowed to drive. So later, when I started racing desert first, I built my own car, and I wasn't allowed to work on the car at my dad's shop. I worked for my dad building the trucks and buggies and stuff, but I wasn't allowed to work on my own stuff there. So anyway, I with some help from some friends, and Frank, I worked out of his shop and built my buggy, and then started racing desert, and we did okay there. And then when short course started and stuff with my dad, then I drove buggies and short course, and then anyway worked into the truck deal, and then I ended up owning the team, and that's how that all started. So that was being a team owner and a driver. That's and that's what I do now. But that's a big chunk to bite off.
What was your dad's motivation there to essentially keep you out of it? You're not going to work on your stuff in his shop, and you're also not going to drive. What was the reasoning for that?
My dad had a few drivers that got killed.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of his friends. My dad started racing with 10 people that were kind of close back. This is back in the day in the 50s, late 40s and 50s, and 8 of those people had gotten killed in race cars.
Wow.
And one of my dad's drivers got killed at Indianapolis, Dave McDonald, driving my dad's car, and it just devastated my dad. Just devastated him. So he wouldn't let me drive because he didn't want me to, end up, stick it in the fence and not coming home.
Yeah. So
I had to do everything, on my own.
Right, but I would imagine still that you were probably fighting a little bit for people that weren't informed, thinking that you got this silver spoon and you were getting this hookup because your dad was the promoter and your dad was this fabulous engineer. Did you still have to fight that even though you weren't getting any? Actually, you were getting less than favorable treatment. But did you get that from the outside?
Oh yeah, I still fight that today.
Wow.
Next month I'm 69 years old and I still fight that. Everybody thinks we went to Bonneville, a rich kid and did it that way, but that's not the way it is, and everybody's got their opinions, and I learned a long time ago you can't fight it. They're going to think what they think, so let them think whatever they want to think and just go do your job.
Yeah, when you were racing in the Mickey Thompson Off-Road Grand Prix events, when you were racing on that race day and you're going to the starting line and hopping in your truck, were you even interacting with your dad on the race day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was up doing, taking care of the races and all that stuff, and I was in the pits, taking care of the team and all that kind of stuff. So it was like two different entities, but yeah, we interacted. I mean, we had a great relationship, except for, I'm still pissed off that he didn't let me drive because my whole goal in driving anything ever was to go to Indianapolis.
Wow.
I wanted to drive an IndyCar, and that was my whole goal, and that didn't happen. And so, that's disappointing, but, and that's probably why I went into the off-road race. I had won a championship in Formula Atlantic, and I think also either first or second in the championship in Super V for Southern California, what is it, SCTA? SCCA. And,
oh, yes.
So my road racing career was well on its way, with 2 championships and stuff, but, it never progressed to that step of IndyCars, which was, always my goal.
Wow. Hey, it did seem like in the 80s there, and by the way, this is when IndyCar is probably at its zenith in popularity. This is before NASCAR has a really big explosion. This is before kart and IRL split, which kind of hurt open wheel. It did seem like there was this real connection between those stadium off-road races and IndyCar, because you had the Mears brothers going in and out, the Archieros. It seemed like there were a lot of people that were involved, the Unzers. It seemed like there was a connection there in a way, drivers going back and forth.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, look what happened with Rick Mears. I mean, Roger drove Indianapolis cars as well, and both of those guys, they were killer in off-road cars. I mean, those guys were whenever they were in a car, that car was pretty much going to win. And so there was that connection, and I think even like you look at the Tony Stewarts and the Kyle Larsons and those guys that came from sprint cars, came from dirt and went into asphalt. Those guys always had really, really good car control, and that's not necessarily the way you go into Indy cars nowadays and stuff, because, it's go-karts and et cetera. But, yeah, I think the off-road thing had a good connection to that, and certainly Rick Mears is the one that really emphasized that, winning that many winning Indianapolis 4 times. I mean, holy guacamole,
Although this actually reminds me, the ultimate alumnus, we always talk about it on the motocross side, the most successful alumni of motocross racing ever, and you could say the most successful alumni of the Mickey Thompson Stadium Series, that is where Jimmy Johnson cut his teeth as a driver in the stadiums, right?
That's right. He came in and he started running the little, what were they called? Not all
super lights or something like that. Yeah,
super lights. Yeah. Good memory. And he came in and he was like, well, when he got into the, in fact, he took my job at Chevrolet actually.
No kidding.
The guy came in. He was like, I don't know. He was like 5 years old and went out and kicked everybody's ass. No, the guy was incredible. But yeah, and I mean, and look at Wardy. I mean,
Yeah.
Gordy came, all the way through the whole motorcycle deal from one end of the gamut to the other, and then got into Indy cars and did well.
Yes.
So there's that connection. And once again, I think any of those guys that are good are really good, and you put them in almost anything, they're going to be good. If the opportunity arises, you can't do it without the equipment.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not like the 50s at Indy and stuff where AJ Foyt or Parnelli, those guys could carry a car in their back. You have to have all the goods now to do it. But those guys all got super talent.
Yeah, there was this brief time where we had Jeff Ward and Rick Johnson battling for wins in the trucks in the very same stadiums that they used to battle for wins in Supercross. It was this really wild thing where it was almost becoming this, hey, we can just keep on doing this. With age comes a cage. It was really cool, I think, for the motocross side to see, hey, these guys got a second life as competitors. It was cool.
Exactly, with steel bars all the way around.
Yeah, that helps a little bit.
They could still do the same things and be a little bit more protected.
That's right. Hey, so NASCAR started a truck series in the mid-'90s. Did that have an effect on some of this factory support? Because as we already said, there was a lot of money being poured into it, and then it was gone very quickly. I'm just looking at the timeline. Is that a coincidence that a lot of this, there was another place to race pickup trucks in NASCAR, which certainly has a lot of clout? Was that a factor?
It was a factor, and I don't know if you knew it or not, but the people that started that series were all off-road people.
Really? No, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, Dick Landfield. Oh man, the guy from Hemet. I should know him. I worked for him.
Okay.
Anyway, there was
you've done a
four
lot.
of them, and Scoop Vessels was one of them.
Oh, wow.
Those guys put the money together to do that first series, and did a few races, local races, and NASCAR saw that and said, "Oh," and NASCAR went and basically bought it from those four guys. But they were all off-road racers.
Wow, so there was a brief, forerunner, basically, to what is today's NASCAR Truck Series. This started by these guys.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, Jim Venerable. So Jim Venerable,
yeah.
Dick Landfield, Scoop Vessels,
Yep.
and I think Jimmy Smith.
Wow.
Those were the four guys that started that whole truck series. And, you had Rob McEachran driving them at first. Somehow he got bypassed in the step to go to the next thing, but he would have been, McEachran, you look at what he's done in off-road racing, I think he's the most winning off-road driver ever, and deservedly so. He would have been in that series and would have been kicking butt too. But yeah, that's where it all started, from off-road racing.
Okay, so by the mid-'80s, late '80s, early '90s, this stadium off-road series is going off. The TV's superb. It seemed like at least the stands were packed. I wasn't there in person, and the teams were pouring in money. Was there money to be made? If you were Ivan Stewart or Rod and Steve Millen, or maybe even yourself, were these guys making money? It seemed like a big deal on the outside.
They were.
Yeah.
The drivers were making money. Ivan Stewart was paid by Toyota a lot of money, and deservedly so. Also, he was out there. He raced the desert, but that's how he made a living.
Yeah.
He went from being a fence installer, chain link fence is what he did, digging holes and sweating out in the sun, to being the biggest name in probably off road. And it was because of those series. So yeah, those guys, some of those guys were making money. I put all my money back into the Chevrolet deal. I'm not a very good businessman. I'm just a racer. So, but both the Millens made good money, and yeah, there was money to be made for sure.
There was.
I think that's probably it. Got out of control with cost. I think is what finally did it in.
Yeah, so that's what I'm eventually getting to here. Things were really on a high. And by the way, you had some good runs yourself. You had a year or two, or maybe even three, where you were kind of battling for the title in the Truck Series. Weren't you right there in the points for a while?
Yeah, we were right there. I think one year we finished third in the points, and 1 point behind Walker for second. And but yeah, we were there. We didn't quite have everything, and I'd like to blame it on this or that, but it doesn't matter, because the bottom line is you look at the results, and that's what the deal is. So we weren't as fast as those other guys, and those other guys beat us, and that's the way that's the way it was. So that series. When my dad did that, when he first laid that thing out, he read about attention spans, right?
Okay.
And the average person's attention span is 6 to 10 minutes.
Wow.
So my dad said 6 to 10 minutes. Okay, so we're going to put these races on. We're going to go a 10-minute race, and we're going to put 18 of them on in whatever it was, 3 hours and 4 different classes. Just enough time in between to get up and go to the restroom or get yourself a beer and a soda and a hot dog and come back and watch the thing. So it was pure entertainment, and make it if you even watched it on TV and everything, there wasn't any lulls. There wasn't 20 minutes or 30 minutes in between races. There was 18 races in the 2-hour period, and that was it. And it was entertainment, and you got in your car and you went home. And I think that's the key that you were talking about, why it got so popular.
Uh-huh.
I mean, yeah, it was there.
And I feel like there was and this probably comes back to that Parnelli-Jones battle you're talking about. I feel like it was embraced, like these trucks are going to flip over, the bodywork's going to get torn to shreds. We're not going to have red flags and restarts because someone flipped the truck. That's part of racing. That's how it works. I feel like there was almost an embracing of the chaos because I guess that was what you were trying to put in a bottle. This is the way off-road racing is. We're trying to show you to it the good and the bad. It was pretty crazy at times.
Yep, you're watching that Parnelli-Jones, Mickey Thompson battle in 10 minutes. And basically I used to describe it as a 10-minute airplane crash. So, I mean, sometimes you'd go upside down a couple times. You'd land on the wheels and you'd take off, and it was crazy. And
yes.
and the people wanted to see that. I mean, it pissed you off as a driver a lot of times because you got turned upside down. Mm-hmm. when you were leading, mm-hmm. or whatever, but that's what made us be able to make a living.
Yeah, putting on that level of show.
Yeah.
Now, we know the tragedy there with your parents in 1988, and the series had to go on. I mean, this happened right in the middle of the season. I guess at that point, you were just a driver. Were you involved with the series in like a operational or management role at any point in '88 when this happened?
No, not at all.
How did they keep it going?
I was just a driver in a race team. Well, and then then we put some other people in there to run it.
Yep.
And I became a board member.
Okay.
So I could hope to try to give it some direction, but
mm-hmm.
but I had to stay kind of separated from it because I was also one of the contenders in the series.
Yeah.
And it got a little convoluted and stuff. And the thing is it didn't have the motivation and the, insight to the future that mm-hmm. my dad had.
Uh-huh.
It got too expensive, and the factories, they started not wanting to spend that kind of money,
uh-huh.
and they started backing out. But my dad had that intuition of what to do next, to stay one step ahead of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is they kind of got one step behind, and when the factories pulled out, so let me back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I did come in, because it was the thing was going away, and it had my dad's name on it. So
yep.
I did step in at the end and try to save it.
Yeah.
Well, I stepped in to try to save it too late, because I'm a competitor first. I'm not a promoter first. I
mm-hmm.
mean, it's pretty funny because I was signing autographs one day, and the next day I was a slimy promoter. Nobody wanted to talk to me, so the transition was pretty brutal. And but I started laying out, and we actually built one spec truck
uh-huh.
to try to control the cost.
Yeah.
Kind of what NASCAR does with their deal, and
mm-hmm.
and so all the chassis were going to be the same, but then you would run your whatever your manufacturer marquee was, Toyota or Chevrolet or whatever, and their motor, and to try to control the cost. But it was too little, too late, So I should have quit driving a couple of years before that and tried to go in and save it, whether I was the guy or not. But I want to race. I'm a racer,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be slimy.
Yes, as they say, a promoter, even on a promoter's best day, they're controversial. If not hated, at least controversial. So it's tough. Yeah.
And there's only one person happy at the end of the day, and that's the guy that won. And then the other 28 competitors or whatever are unhappy with what you did. You threw the flag at the wrong time. You did something wrong. So promoter is kudos to promoters because I know how hard it is.
Yeah. So several headwinds hit, but boy, you really nailed something with your dad's vision there. I mean, we're literally talking this very day about NASCAR. What are they going to do? The short attention span, the races are too long, and many other sports are dealing with that too. So here's your dad, 40 years before this, already saying you got to keep it short. That's quite a visionary right there.
That's quite a visionary, and I mean, and he had that. I mean, he'd already been a promoter. You know, he built Lions Drag Strip in Long Beach when he was 30 years old, and maybe 28 years old. You know, and built that. You know, from going out there, and I mean, I got the first ride down Lions Drag Strip when I was about 4 years old. I was standing on the grader, you know, as they were grading the track, and it was like the guy. My dad just had it on multiple levels of, you know, promoting and of course going fast and those kind of things. And he's one of the guys that took those two entities and combined them, you know, and made a good living out of it.
So these are the headwinds then that the series faces. It looks like it's this unstoppable force. It's just getting going, but then tragically your dad passes, and then and then the factories start pulling out because there's a lot of money to be spent. Do you think that alternative where they had this NASCAR series just when NASCAR was really getting big, do you think that was a factor, that some of the money got shifted over there, or no?
No, I don't think so, because it happened kind of after the stadium thing was already in spiraling down mode.
Yeah.
Now, my dad could have saved that.
Yep.
And, you know, but I wasn't smart enough to do it for sure. And the people that were in there in MTEG before me, you know, they weren't either. So, I mean, it's black and white. You know, it went away. And you can't blame anybody but yourself. You know, I mean, I didn't run it until the end, and it was already gone when I came in. Yep. And basically, we should have just bankrupted the thing right then, but it was my dad's name.
Yep.
So I had to go in and put my best effort in to make it survive, and that effort wasn't good enough.
Was there, what was the final season? Wasn't there like one race or two races in the final season? Is that basically how it went?
Yeah, 95, and we ran Anaheim, and Anaheim's always a winner.
Yes.
Anaheim's a super event, and the people are enthusiastic, and you got, you know, the stadium is surrounded 360 degrees by people, and, you know, so we did Anaheim, San Diego, and San Diego we lost a lot of money in San Diego. Then we went to Seattle, and Seattle was the kill stop.
So there were three events. You actually ran that Seattle event.
Events.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ran that Seattle event, and came back and then, you know, looked at it and said, there's no way.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no way to save it.
And didn't you?
We had no factories. We had no stadium trucks.
Wow.
Because all the factories backed out. The tire companies backed out. So we were trying to run desert trucks, which I renamed them Thunder trucks, to try to put them in there. And then you had to make the courses the turns be way more open. You know, no 180-degree turns, because those desert trucks won't turn.
Yeah.
I mean, those stadium trucks turn 46 degrees each direction, you know, on the steering. And typically a car turns, about 21 or 22 degrees, somewhere in there. So, you know, you couldn't make the desert trucks be in there. They made more horsepower and they made more noise, but then you had the noise factor that you had to control, you know, through the stadiums with the, what do they call it, dB? You know, for all that.
Loud.
So you had to back all that down too. Yeah. So, the nail was in the coffin.
Wait, was that the old Seattle with a roof King Dome on it? Was that what your last? How loud was that? That must have been unbelievably loud.
Yeah. That was the concrete dome.
Yeah.
It reverberated off those concrete walls and that stuff. So, and the buggy races were still good. You know, you had the Welchels out there and those guys that were, you know, just killing it in the buggies. But you needed more than that. You know, you needed something that people could they associate with the buggies, but trucks, like what NASCAR used to be anyway, I guess still is, you know, then you associate with the manufacturer's marquees.
So these trucks in the heyday, when they were true factory stadium trucks, I mean, what was the rule book like? Could they basically build whatever they wanted within a certain, maybe the dimensions or the engine size or something? How big a box did they have to just spend and go for it?
The box got tighter and tighter as Toyota got, you know, faster and faster.
Yeah.
Transmissions were open. The engine thing got, you know, pretty much that got controlled because you couldn't let somebody have, you know, an extra 100 horsepower or 50 horsepower or whatever. The rules were pretty strict. But that's what when I went in and tried to save it and started spec deal,
Mm-hmm.
you had to try to bring some of that in because, I mean, Toyota was spending a ton of money on research and that stuff. There's always, you look at F1, and they say, well, what's Ferrari's budget? Well, Ferrari doesn't have a budget,
Yeah.
So they do what it takes to win, and that's what Toyota was doing. And I'm not bad mouthing them. More power to them. That's where the rules have to come in and restrict that. It's like, the motocross bikes when they were full on,
they were works bikes, yeah.
That stuff.
Yep.
Works bikes, yeah.
Yep.
Before they had to reel that in to control it.
And you know what though, it sounds easy maybe for people listening to say, yeah, you just make rules so they can't spend money. But I've always heard you can't really restrict it because if you have the money, you can always say, all right, well, we'll just hire 3 more engineers, or we'll just hire some guy from NASA. The truck might be a spec truck, but we'll spend the money somewhere. We'll just test more, or we'll build a test track. Like, it's really tough to stop it.
No, exactly, and that's what happens to NASCAR. That's NASCAR.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They're in that situation, and that's what they call unquote the gray area.
Yeah.
So the gray area, you utilize that, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
That's your job. Your job is to win, whatever it takes to win. And if you have to stretch that gray area, stretch it till you get caught, and they back you up, and then you go a different direction.
Yeah. It's so. Those final 3 events, and I guess going into that 95 season, I guess you already knew that this was going to be an uphill battle. I would assume you kind of knew that you were just Hail Marying this at this point.
That's absolutely true, because I came in for those last 3 events.
Yeah.
And because I went from driving from Chevrolet to driving for Ford, and I drove for them, I think, for 2 years, and for Jim Venerable.
Yep.
And it was, like I said, we should have just pulled the plug the year before at the end of the year.
Yep.
And that would have been the wise decision.
Yeah.
And certainly wouldn't have cost us, us being my family, everything we had.
Wow.
When it went bankrupt, it took everything we had.
Wow.
And we should have done that. But as I mentioned before, it was my dad's name.
Yeah. Yep.
I couldn't give that up. He was my dad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I work for the Coombs family here, and I'll tell you what, man, that's the motivation every day is family legacy more than anything than it is money. You certainly want the company to be successful. That's a requirement, or the company doesn't exist. But there's nothing that motivates people more than something like that. So it's certainly understandable why you're like, I got to take one swing at this.
Exactly.
What did you do as a driver, or even just for work after this? Because I would assume for a long time this series was your thing, whether you were driving or trying to save it at the end. Then what did you do when it closed up?
I'm a fabricator.
Oh, okay.
And I started. We lost everything, and I started building fences and stuff like that. So I worked construction for the next 10 or 15 years or whatever it was before I started racing again. But I built fences, and I built countertops and handrails and staircases and stuff like that.
Wow. And then what led you back into
driving? I got to start doing next week now that this bodybuilding is over.
All right, you're going to have to grow up sometime. Sorry about that.
No, that ain't going to happen.
Oh, okay. All right. Still playing with toys. What led you back into getting to do some driving 10 years later?
Well, and then during all of this, my son was just growing up, and I elected to spend time with him. Make sure that I went to all the soccer tournaments and all the speech tournaments and all that stuff. And then my son, he got a full scholarship when he was a sophomore in high school to go to Europe and finish school.
Wow!
And then I'm still doing this other stuff, and I started thinking. I guess the thing that really turned it around. I mean, I missed the racing. I mean, I was on the road for, how it is to be on the road to go all these events and everything and what it takes, because I was on the IndyCar circuit for a number of years with Interscope Racing. And, so I was doing an IndyCar race one weekend, and then I was doing an IMSA sports car race the next weekend. We would be in Le Mans one weekend, and, a month later we'd be in Japan and all that. So I miss, and you get real tired of living out of a suitcase and eating in hotels and restaurants. And I got tired of all that, but I'm sitting there. I think it was when my dad's, I think if I have this right, when it was 50 years since he went 400 miles an hour, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm talking to my wife. I'm going, I wonder if I could take that car and go 400 miles an hour with it. And then I decided I don't want to be sitting here on the couch when I'm 80 years old wondering, could I have gone 400 miles an hour? So that's when I broke that car out of storage and started working. I'd been thinking about it before, but I've been trying to, promote it and get the money and everything, and I couldn't find the sponsorship. And finally I just said, whatever it takes, I'm going to do this. And that's what we started. I mean, when we started down there, and when I moved from, I didn't move. I still have I live in Colorado.
Uh-huh.
And, I came down. But Colorado's got a bunch of really good skiers and a lot of good mountain climbers, but not too many good welders.
Yeah.
So I moved down to Huntington Beach and, started this deal up. And, I didn't want to be 80 wondering, would have this been possible? And then wondering from your 80 till the day you pitch, could have I done that? No, I went out and we did it.
But it's interesting to hear that it's such a labor of love, because it's not like you ended up with this massive trust fund based on your dad's success as a promoter. As you said, that 95 season pretty much wiped all that out. So it's not like you're working off of this. And I know there's the tire company, but how does that work? Is that licensed out? You guys aren't actually running that, right?
No, we have nothing to do with it. Cooper Tire bought that tire company a number of years ago out of the estate when my dad passed.
Yep.
And they didn't buy it out of the estate. It was bought by partners out of the estate. And then,
right.
I have nothing to do with the Mickey Thompson tire deal. I run. They make a Bonneville tire, and we run that tire. But that's about as far as that goes.
Yeah. So basically, anything you're doing here, you're a fabricator, and you're spending whatever money you have. There's not a Mickey Thompson trust fund that's just for building this car out of storage and getting it to go to Bonneville.
No, to be honest, we've my wife Valerie and my son Travis. I mean, Valerie's awesome because she's put up with me for these last 8 years, spending everything we have. We don't have anything left.
Wow.
We don't have any 401ks.
Yeah.
Nothing. She hasn't even had a car for 3 years. So
Well,
it's just we're committed. We were committed to do this, and now we've done it. Now we got to go to work.
She's got a really fast car though. If she wants it right now, it goes 400 miles an hour.
She does. and she'll fit in it.
Oh yeah, there you go. Okay, so as far as racing now goes, there is still a connection, actually, even on the Supercross side. Every year, you, and now I think it's your son, you hand out this Mickey Thompson Award of Excellence at Anaheim, because your dad was a promoter for that Anaheim Supercross for a little while. So that's cool. You still have a little connection. A lot of fans might not, if they're younger, might not even know what the connection is. But every year, you guys are involved in your own way.
Every year, and that award's given to somebody that helps promote Supercross. Whoever it is, it can be from a rider to a manufacturer, or whoever it is that's helped enhance the sport of Supercross. And I follow Supercross. I watch all the races. And I go to Anaheim, of course. But I just and I admire what those guys do, and it's pretty darn cool. It's too bad that their careers are usually fairly short-lived.
Yeah.
Because they got so much talent and everything, and it'd be nice to see them make a living. And some of them do. You look at Wardy and Ricky Johnson, who we talked about earlier. Those kind of guys have parlayed some stuff into it. But it's just, you watch these guys, and I mean, they're amazing athletes. Whether I was involved or not, you look at them, and being that I've ridden and stuff, not anywhere close to their level or anything like that. But you're right. Anybody that goes and rides a motorcycle has to look at those guys and go, "Oh my gosh!" Watching that last mud race or the last outdoor deal, it's kind of like, how the hell are they even getting through that stuff? I mean, you put somebody that's probably a fairly decent rider on that course, what they rode in that mud in that last race, they wouldn't even be able to make a lap. It's slow.
Yeah.
They'd be caught in the rock and the ruts and all that other stuff. You're looking at those guys coming up to those ruts and going, what the hell is he going to do this time? But they got that knack, that eyesight, that feeling of the bike and everything, and pretty amazing to me. So I'm still very involved in it that way. I'm not so much. I'm not hands-on touching anymore. But good stuff.
There was a brief, it wasn't where Supercross was, but they did run the Ultracross, the motocross bikes in the Stadium Off-Road Series there, and that got pretty big. Even Jeremy McGrath did it. My buddy Jim Hawley was champ a lot. That seemed like that was actually starting to get some support, almost as like a secondary Supercross thing.
It was, and we had to end up running them backwards on the course to make it be a little bit more spectacular, and the jumps were a little bit steeper that way. And you were up and down. You weren't as high and far as you do in Supercross, but up high and down. And Jim Hawley was awesome.
Yeah,
Jim Hawley's still awesome.
Oh yeah,
he's the man. But Jeremy rode. I think Wardy might have ridden a couple races, maybe.
Yep.
And but that was once again in that 18 races in the 2-hour period, trying to give a little bit to everybody. So if you're a motocross fan, a motorcycle fan, you got to see something. If you're a truck fan, you got to see something. If you're a buggy fan, you got to see something. If you're a little car fan, you got to see something.
Yep.
And the peewees. So you're trying to give you're trying to give something to everybody to give them the entertainment value. So they'll show up and come buy a ticket and pay for parking and that kind of stuff.
Now, a few attempts have been started. I think, so Supercross, it's gone through like 15 owners in like a 20-year span, but at one point it was like Pace. And didn't Pace attempt to kind of revive it and do a very similar thing, maybe not even that far after that 95 season? They tried it, didn't they? I never saw it, but they did try it, right?
They did try it, and so they didn't have trucks.
Oh,
they had buggies. They had buggies and the bikes and that kind of stuff. The trucks were really what sold the show.
Yeah.
And they were. I mean, the buggy races were equally as good as the trucks, but for some reason, with the bodies flying off and all that kind of stuff. But they I don't remember if that was. You're probably right. It was Pace. I can't remember which name it was at that time.
Yeah.
But they tried it a few races because see that way when they did it, they could amortize the dirt across 2 events, kind of like they do with Monster Truck and Supercross at Anaheim, where they have 4 events or 5 events, and then that dirt gets amortized across 4 events, and it makes it be a lot cheaper. I mean, I think it was like $125,000 to put a track in back in the day. So I don't know what the heck it would cost nowadays.
Yeah, $500,000 or who knows, or $1 million or something.
Right.
But that never really. I'm thinking, the people that are running Supercross are going to run this. We already know the concept works because it's been successful before. I'm like, this is a guaranteed hit, but it apparently wasn't. This is a lot harder. No one's been able to master it. That didn't last very long, as far as I can remember.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think maybe a season or maybe a half a season. I can't remember. And also, you got to remember without the factories there. Being the truck guys, these guys have regular jobs that are running buggies, and they can't go from Anaheim to Detroit.
Oh, okay.
So you wouldn't have the car count when you went to North Carolina or wherever you went, Indy, stuff like that. So that I tell you that promoting those races is so hard with scheduling, and I mean one year we scheduled a off-road race at Indianapolis against the Final Four. I mean. That was bad on our part, I mean, Indianapolis Final Four, and you're going to come watch an off-road race? I don't think so.
Yeah, crowd wasn't very good for that one.
No, what crowd? The crowd was the competitors.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, I would think, and Supercross struggle with this too. You always said, as you said, Anaheim is always a success. Building success in these other markets, I mean, Supercross has really struggled, and they finally have gotten there maybe over the last 20 years, like since Jeremy McGrath really helped blow it up. But was that a struggle for the Stadium Off-Road Series too? You could get Anaheim and San Diego, but what about all these other ones to piece an actual championship together?
Well, that was it. I mean, you go to, and then what do you do about the dirt when you're trying to run at Indianapolis in the wintertime and there's snow on the ground or, that kind of stuff. So all of that increased the cost a lot more. And then trying to educate the people in California are more off-road orientated because of Mexico and all the Southern California deserts and Arizona deserts and stuff. So that probably already had the seed had been planted just normally because people knew what that was. And you could ride your motorcycle 12 months a year. Yep. It's not in the garage for 6 and that kind of stuff. So that might have been a little bit easier of a sell. To the Southern California deal, but trying to when we started doing that stuff back east and stuff, it was a tough sale, and it's hard to eat a $200,000 or $300,000 loss, and keep everything else. It takes a tremendous amount of people, as you well know. I mean, just look at the booth where you are and how many people support the booth. From the people down in the truck to I mean, they only see you up there with a microphone. But what is your support staff?
Yeah, we got like 40 or 50 people on that crew, and that's just for TV. That has nothing to do with running the actual race, which is probably another 40 or 50 people, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, or more than 100, because you got to figure you got flag people in there, and medical personnel people in there, and people at the ticket office, and VIP, and all that stuff. So yeah, the cost is, and a lot of that. I mean, when you look at a Supercross event or an off-road event, you got so much money out up front in advertising, track cost, radio, television, and all that stuff before you ever sell a ticket.
Yes. So you better have some cash on hand before the event runs.
Exactly.
Okay, there was one more attempt at it. This is one of the famous alumni. I remember when Robbie Gordon jumped up to the trucks from the buggy series. It was as wild and spectacular. He was very much, for motocross people to understand, he was very much like the Damon Bradshaw or Jeremy McGrath, like just this sensation instantly. And, man, he rubbed some people the wrong way, but it was drama and controversy. And I just remember watching these things on TV, and this was just so exciting to watch. And then he eventually tried it himself. His series is still going. It's not in stadiums any longer. But he really tried to run that exact formula just a few years ago. I'm sure you were probably paying attention to that just to see how it would go.
Oh yeah, and like you say, Robbie's probably rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but you look at Robbie as an individual, the guy is freaking amazing, because he's had a lot of success, but he's had a lot of failures, and he just keeps after it and after it.
Yeah.
And I mean, he adapted that series. I mean, he's now, he runs in conjunction with a IndyCar race or that kind of stuff, and all the ramps are all portable. Well, we did that originally and when we first went back east, because of the dirt problem that I mentioned, like getting dirt in the wintertime and stuff, we had steel ramps. And and that was way back in, whenever that was that my dad did that.
Yeah.
So he takes that show on the road, and he runs all over the world. And he's still doing it. And, kudos to Robbie, because, I mean, it would have just knocked anybody else out. They would have given up, but he keeps coming up with sponsors. How he does it, I have no idea. I'd love to have him do something for me like that, for sponsorship for the stadium, or not for this Bonneville deal.
Yeah.
But kudos to Robbie, and he's made it work. He's had to adapt it. He started off almost exactly the same as the Mickey Thompson series, inside stadiums, and then I mean, we talked about it, and I said, Robbie, because he wanted me to come to work for him.
Oh, okay.
And I said, I don't want to do that, I mean, I don't want to be a promoter.
Okay.
I want to be a race car driver, but he went out and he got knocked down on the stadiums, and they lost money, and he adapted and kept adapting and adapting, and now he's got a different niche market. And I tell you, you go to an IndyCar show, and I'm an open wheel IndyCar fan, Formula One fan. I'm a race fan. I like good racing. I don't care what it is, as long as it's good and there's good, beating and banging and side by side. I like it, but Robbie just kept adapting and adapting, and he's still making it happen. And good for Robbie.
Yeah, I was somewhat loosely involved because I think the very first year of his, new stadium series, it was on NBCSN. So I was trying to, hey, I would love to go to some of these and be an announcer or pit reporter or whatever. And they had a couple, and I remember Robbie basically saying, "Where are the people?" Like, what? Like, I think they had one in, say, St. Louis, and they had like 800 fans. And it really shows how much you take for granted when you see something that's successful, be it Supercross, be it your dad's series in its heyday. Even NASCAR, hey, the crowds aren't as big as they were, but you take for granted that if you just hold an event, people are going to show. But, man, it does not work that way. These things don't happen automatically.
They do not. I mean, and you got to promote. I'm sorry, I'm sitting underneath the approach to the Orange County airport.
Oh, we're good. Yep.
Flying over. I keep opening the door and closing the door. So I mean, it takes an army of thousands, to make that happen, and the people shouldn't have to understand that. They're coming for entertainment. They don't have to know about the nuts and bolts. But you look at it and you say, oh, so and so failed at doing that. Yeah, well, now look at all of the ins and outs of what has to happen. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of work and high risk. I mean, talk about high risk. The drivers out there, sideways, or the guy, 25 feet in the air doing a triple. Yeah. Those guys are taking risks, but the promoter is taking an equal risk trying to get the people in there. So Yeah, you got to look. You look at it from different ways according to how you're involved.
That's pretty cool, though, that Robbie reached out to you, at least a sign of respect. He wasn't trying to pretend that he invented this thing. Like, he came to you and wanted you to be part of it. That sounds pretty cool.
Now, and he gave my dad credit. I want to make this be like the Mickey Thompson. I went to the first press conference at the LA Coliseum, and I actually stood up and talked and stuff. And no, he gave total respect for my dad, which is that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so right now you're back to just being a regular guy who's just watching races as a fan. Car's been put back behind the scenes, I guess, huh?
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to put Challenger 1, which is my dad's original 4-engine car, and Challenger 2 together. I'd like to get them both out on the salt together,
cool.
that got pictures of them side by side.
Yep.
And then whether they go to a museum, somewhere they're going to go to be seen, because I think there's too much history there to leave them in my shop, 10 miles down a dirt road that nobody sees.
And it's hot right now. Obviously, it's in the news. That's even what spurred me to say, oh, man, I would love to talk to Danny Thompson because of this Bonneville thing. So probably now's the best time to do it. And I'm sure you want to anyway.
I want to anyway. And Dale Earnhardt Sr., one day I was walking with him, and we were, I think at Talladega, and we were walking over to the Hall of Fame thing. And I asked him what he was doing. This to me is one of the most tremendous statements I've ever heard in motorsports or any type of life at all. So we're walking over there, and I asked him what he was doing, and he was doing a personal appearance here, and they had qualifying here, they had a team meeting here. His schedule was unbelievable. I said, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "That is," and I had somewhat of an idea of how all that worked, because that's what I did on a way lesser scale. And I said, "How do you do all that?" And he says, "Let me tell you something, boy." And now I'm older than he is, right?
Okay.
Let me tell you something, boy. He says, that horse don't run very often, and he says, when it's running, he says, you best be on it.
Wow.
That's a prolific statement right there. If you think about it, it don't run very often. When you best be on it. And I thought about that. I said, oh my gosh, so you're not on top of the. Like we hold this record right now, but will we hold it by the end of summer? Who knows? So yeah, I want to get that car out there and get it seen, and I'm very proud of it. I got 8 years of my life in that thing, 7 days a week, and it's probably my biggest accomplishment ever, and yeah, I'm really proud of it.
So that's Danny Thompson. Great conversation with him. You can learn more about his project. Just go to Thompson LSR. That's Thompson Land Speed Record. Go to ThompsonLSR.com. Great website with a lot of information on the history of the vehicle, some photos, and a lot of other awesome news and stories as this project came along, and then what happened when they actually did get the record. So big thanks to Danny. We'll hang out with him at Anaheim. I'll shake his hand there. And big thanks to you for listening. Big thanks to Yoshimura for sponsoring this. Go to yoshimura-rd.com for all your 4-stroke exhaust needs, bikes, ATVs, and of course, dirt bikes. That new Suzuki RMZ 250 was finally found and ridden in person by our man Jason Thomas. I bet you a Yoshimura exhaust would be sweet on that thing. And many other dirt bikes also. Check out RacerXbrand.com. We've got the patriotic line. We've got the exhaust discount, 20% off if you type in the word exhaust in all capital letters. And the RacerX main event will be there this weekend, MX207. If you want to come up in Maine, look, man, there's a hurricane coming that, from as far as I can tell, might hit everywhere from New York City through Houston, Texas. I think that's how wide it is right now. But I guarantee you the hurricane is not going to make its way all the way up to Maine. I probably shouldn't say that. Hurricane Florence and the Machine for all you indie musician fans out there. If you can't make it to Maine, don't worry. We'll have a podcast again next week. And I appreciate you folks listening to these and appreciate Yoshimura and RacerX Brand for backing us. Thanks to Danny Thompson. Thanks to you. See you next time.